Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an unbelievable neighbor Karen claims I am too disabled to be outside and ends up assaulting me. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The title story starts like this. Before I get to the good stuff regarding Karen, I need to explain a little bit about myself. I'm a 24-year-old female and have a condition called cerebral palsy, which for this story I will use the shorthand CP for. The only things that really matter to know is the severity with this is very wide-ranged, and I'm considered a person that some might call having a milder case. I use a wheelchair to get around and have mostly full control of my arms, and my speech is affected enough that you can tell something is different about it, but I can be understood. With all that boring stuff over, we can get on with talking about Karen. Karen is on the HOA board of my neighborhood and lives across the street from me, and I can tell I make her uncomfortable, which honestly sucks. I like being out in my front yard and working on my garden, so I tend to see Karen a lot and how she stares at me when she thinks I'm not looking at her. I kind of mastered a way to care for a garden, but know that it might look a little silly to an outside observer. This time was different though, because Karen actually walked across the street to speak to me. Karen, okay, I've been patient, but you really need to drop this act. People are seeing and it's bad for the image of the neighborhood. Me, excuse me? Karen, and talking like that too. I know that you just want attention from everybody, so you sit in a chair and pretend to slur your words. Well, guess what? Enough is enough. Me, I'm not faking anything. I have CP and it affects my ability to walk and my speech. I cannot help it if people pass by and see me. I just cannot stand up like you want. Karen, then you need to get back in your house. If you cannot stand or speak clearly, then you're obviously too disabled to be outside with normal people. Not to mention you're dragging down the property value on my house and everybody else is near you. Nobody wants to move in and live next to a derogatory remark I don't want to repeat. I would have a few comments regarding Karen's outfit or the fact that you can clearly hear her at times drunk and screaming at somebody in her house. I did not get that chance because right after her mini rant she decided to grab my chair and try to push it over. But it's heavier than she thought, and while she was trying to use her leg to kick it over, another neighbor came by. This neighbor was a great woman with 2 kids and always said hello when she saw me. We were not friends or anything, but she saw I was in trouble and came over to try and help me. I only ever saw her in a happy mood, so seeing her get angry and yell at Karen was kind of amazing. She was yelling for Karen to leave me alone and chastising her for picking on somebody in a wheelchair. Karen should have turned around and left, but she didn't know what was good for her. She punched my super nice neighbor right in the face. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 saying that I need an officer because my neighbor just punched my other one in the face and may have broken her nose. Furthermore, I then saw Karen pulling her phone out as well and literally screaming that someone just attacked her and she had to defend herself by knocking that someone out. It seemed like she called the cops as well, which seemed kind of ironic. All the while, Karen was screaming in the background that I was lying and yelling more derogatory names towards me. The police arrived and Karen tried to argue that my statement cannot be valid against her because I'm disabled and clearly don't understand what's going on. Like, thanks Karen, but I have a college degree and read books that you probably cannot even pronounce. Plus, she was still arguing that she didn't do anything when my neighbor was clearly hurt and bleeding from being punched. With both of us saying that Karen actually did it and the whole story behind it. The police arrested Karen for assault, which she was not happy with and didn't want to comply. Walking away and trying to make a phone call with the police wanting to cuff her and read her rights to her. She said she was calling a lawyer and not letting her was a violation of her rights, even though she needed to be arrested first. Eventually they did get her in the car and my neighbor went to get checked out by a doctor. Then the next day I went over to check on her and see how she was after getting punched. I felt a little guilty that she got hurt getting involved because of me. It was not broken luckily, but she had a hospital bill that she was gonna make sure Karen paid for it by the end of everything. I thanked her probably 100 times because I didn't know what I would have done about Karen if it was just the 2 of us that day. We got notified that Karen had pled not guilty and was going to trial for her arrest. The charges being assault, battery, resisting arrest and a hate crime. It turns out that in addition to the incident, the police had uncovered some other things Karen was trying to do within the HOA. She had tried to push several petitions to ban visibly disabled people from living in the neighborhood. Something that could never pass legally because of the ADA, but it showed her intent and hatred towards me because I was disabled. It gave intent to her actions of assault, plus it was not her first arrest related to disabled people. Being charged with a misdemeanor in the past for harassing and degrading disabled people in public. I did not need to really do much at the trial except explain what I was doing before Karen came over and how her actions made me feel. Whether I felt threatened or scared by what she might do to me, and even though she didn't hurt me, the attempt to harm me was still assault. I really don't know why she was trying to plead not guilty, because she didn't have much of a defense. Her whole thing was just calling us liars and saying that nothing I said should be allowed in court because I was disabled, even though the courts considered my statements as valid and legal. That, mixed with my neighbor's testimony, was more than enough to get Karen found guilty by the jury. Honestly, it was gonna look bad for her in front of a jury no matter what. Being accused and not really denying the fact that you tried to attack somebody in a wheelchair will always make you look bad. She was going to prison for everything she did, but not for a very long time. She did get a few extra consequences from the stunt she pulled though. I was granted an order of protection against Karen, which meant she couldn't come near me, but since her house was so close, she had to sell it and move to not be in violation of the order. My neighbor had one against her too, and also the HOA had a policy that no ex-convicts can serve on an HOA board. Meaning she was not only off it for the time she was gone, but banned from being on it forever. Losing the little power she had and stopping any more of her attempted petitions from even being looked at. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you still enjoy these stories about crazy people getting what they deserve, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. Thank you so much, and the next one is a malicious compliance story. So yeah, a couple of years ago I was working for an IT company which also provided server management and general domain and email services. We had some really big companies as clients, so we were used to some idiotic demands, but most of the time we could convince the people whose main job seemingly was to be in charge to listen to our expertise. Not so Mr. Bigwig. Mr. Bigwig was the CEO of a large automobile sales company. He was also the type of guy who prided himself with being a great negotiator and thinking so far ahead that regular people cannot follow. And he was a complete ass to everyone. Mr. Bigwig went on a holiday once and set up an automatic out-of-office reply in his email account, but as is the technical standard, everybody who wrote him during that time only received the reply just one single time. When Mr. Bigwig returned from his vacation, this infuriated him a lot, so he called our support line and yelled and cussed his way up our hierarchy until he had me on the phone. I tried to tell him that this was working as intended and tried to explain why, but Mr. Bigwig would not have any of it. This went all the way to our CTO, who sent him a waiver to sign stating that we would deactivate this limitation but not be liable for any consequences in short. Then he told me to make the changes to MB's account. I tried to object, but the CTO just smiled, shrugged and went into his office. So Mr. Bigwig was happy. He won and booked this as his latest negotiating victory. Now let us jump to December the 29th of the same year. I get a phone call from Mr. Bigwig. He is not happy. He is not happy because he is blacklisted on about every blacklist in existence. He is also not happy because he cannot receive or send any mail. And he's not happy because he cannot find any mail he received during the Christmas holidays or near them. He cannot find them because the nice number in brackets besides his inbox folder that indicates the amount of unread mails he has reads 50,000. A quick look around the server logs tells me that there are indeed some mails he didn't receive, 150,000 to be exact. They are still pending delivery because his inbox is full. He is also not happy because he is the laughingstock of everybody he ever respected. Now let me guide you as the reader to the bottom of this. What you don't know, and we also did not know at the time, is Mr. Bigwig was a member of a very exclusive group of business owners, CEOs and high-ranking politicians around the globe. The kind of people you would imagine sitting around a large oak table smoking cigars, drinking $200 whiskey and discussing world dominance. And this group had a mailing list. A crappy basic mailing list. It went something like this. Bigwig, out of office reply. Hey, thank you for your mail, but I'm on holiday. I'll reply later. Some random dude at mailing list. Merry Christmas. Mailing list at everybody. Hey guys, some dude random is wishing you Merry Christmas. Bigwig mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I'm on holiday. I'll reply later. Mailing list at everybody. Hey guys, Mr. Bigwig is on holiday. He will reply later. Bigwig mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I'm on holiday. I'll reply later. Mailing list at effing everybody. Hey guys, Mr. Bigwig is on holiday. He will reply later. Bigwig mailing list. Thanks for telling me, but I'm on holiday. I will reply later. And so on and so forth. This was repeated until the servers gave out. So B. Diddy was not the only one who had thousands and thousands of mails in his folder. All his fancy pants networking contacts had too. Mr. Bigwig raged hard at everyone who was brave enough to get on the phone with him, threatened to sue us for millions of euros and to end us as a business. We then finally put him through to our founder, who listened to his rant and told him he would send him a solution within the next 10 minutes. He sent 2 documents, a scan of the signed waiver, in which the consequences of disabling the out-of-office message restriction were outlined in detail, and a service contract allowing us to fix the problem to our abilities without any financial budget limitations, but with a really nice, read enormous, estimated budget. It was a good year for the company with an unexpected spike in revenue just before New Year's Eve. And the next one is another malicious compliance story, and please let me know in the comments whether you still enjoy r/malicious compliance or not. So this took place during the first summer of lockdown where I live. Some context for you: my town is basically on the edge of nowhere. We have a medical center for basic stuff, but a full hospital is 30 to 40 minutes in any direction, depending on where you chose to go. With that in mind, we get people from a huge surrounding area that go to our town center for tests, simple medical exams, etc. Maybe as many as 50 small communities use our center on a daily basis, so it's constantly busy. The center itself is quite small compared to hospitals in the city. The various clinics and a basic ER take up most of the space, with an area by the front doors for the public to sit in if they are waiting for a ride or someone visiting a doctor. It is that waiting area that's the cause for my story today. So one day during the first summer of lockdown here, I had to go to the medical center for some tests. Some things to know about me: I'm challenged with multiple disabilities. I'm legally blind and have significant mobility and balance issues and a rather severe heart condition. As such, I use a walking frame and travel using the city's provided disabled transports. That particular day, I had finished my tests early and had 45 minutes to wait until my transport was scheduled to return to pick me up. I figured, no problem, I'll just sit in the waiting area and, well, wait. I shuffled over to the seats with my walker plainly evident and was confronted by a new sign. It said staff only. Say what now? I looked around at all the empty seats and vacant tables and turned to the clerks at the entrance. Me: can I please have a seat in the waiting area until my transport comes back? Clerk coldly: no, it's staff only. You need to wait outside. Me: I cannot stand for 45 minutes waiting for my transport, gesturing to my plainly apparent walking frame that I was clearly leaning heavily on. Clerk: not my problem. There are benches to sit on outside. Me: the benches are full and we are supposed to be social distancing, not cuddling up to random strangers on a park bench. Clerk: if you want, I suppose I could let you take a wheelchair out and sit in that. Me: and how am I to manage a wheelchair and my walking frame at the same time? Clerk: again, not my problem. If you want, you can call the center management when you get home. Are we done here? Me: I guess we are done, huh? And went outside to find a spot to wait. Well, I stood outside for the 45 minutes while the sun beat down on what turned out to be a 104 Fahrenheit day. As I stood there, I noticed that there was a line of patients growing steadily longer, also standing outside in the heat, waiting to be let into the building. Some looked fit, but let's face it, nobody comes to a medical center because they feel 100% well. Most of them looked quite ill, and some were even looking pretty faint by the time they got through the doors. By the time my transport arrived, I was badly sunburned, thirsty as hell, exhausted, and feeling more than a bit faint myself. My driver was shocked and insisted on walking me to my front door when he got me home to make sure I was okay. Shout out to all transport drivers, you guys rock, and the rest of the day was a complete loss. I spent it drinking water, sleeping and nursing the burns on my shoulders and face. I was a right mess. The next day, however, I was pissed. I had plenty of time to recover and to think, and I kept coming back to that line of patients standing in the heat. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Malicious compliance incoming. The words the clerk so smugly said was, "You can call the center management when you get home if you want," danced through my sun-baked brain like a mantra. So then I called center management, and what followed was a half-hour conversation with the sweetest lady. She was so nice and so upset when I told her all that went on the day before. She was especially concerned when she found out about the line of people waiting outside what turned out to be the hottest day we had that summer. After our talk, the manager promised to look into it and get back to me. Now, normally that's sort of a brush off, right? But not so with this lady. 2 days later, she called me back. Turned out she had spent the day before sitting at the clerk's desk observing things that went on. Things like patients being forced to stand in the rain waiting to get into the center, patients being poorly spoken to by the same clerk, and the cherry on top. At one point, a tiny elderly lady tried to sit down in the waiting area, and the same clerk ran over and rudely shoved her aide and snapped marked staff only, with her boss sitting right there. The manager went over, tore down the signs and apologized to the lady and helped her to take a seat, and then took the clerk into her office for a chat. The results? The center was immediately restructured, staff were moved into an unused gift shop and the waiting room as returned to the public, and best of all, the registry desks were moved so patients no longer had to stand outside waiting to get into the building. I never saw that clerk there again, and I know this is not as exciting as most stories on here, but knowing I was part of making things so much better for so many still makes me happy. Dang it, I'm proud of my mini coup. Heavy, viva la resistance and all that crap. Also, happy birthday to user PowerStruggle555, whose 40th birthday it is today. And also, thank you for your amazing support, because I know that you have been here since the beginning. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. As the owner of a small but thriving company in Southeast Asia, I was always looking for ways to improve the quality of our operations. A few months ago, while reviewing the performance of our branches, I noticed that one of them had been underperforming for several months. At first, I thought it might be a problem with the location or the products that we were selling. However, as I dug deeper, I began to suspect that the real issue was with our employees. I decided to directly get in touch with the manager of that branch, an employee who has been with me since the beginning when my company was still small. The pandemic had taken a toll on her health, and she had taken many sick days in the past year. Nothing I minded, as I knew she was a hardworking woman, but it did bother me that the moment she was gone, the employees under her were acting out. She told me that she had also been trying to understand the cause of the poor performance, but being absent from the office for weeks made it difficult for her. I knew that as the owner, I had to take action myself. But I also knew that I couldn't just walk into the branch and start firing people. I needed a more subtle approach. So that is when I came up with the idea to go undercover as a new employee. I created a fake ID with a different name, dressing in plain clothes and even shaving so I look younger. The manager introduced me to the team on Monday, and I got started with my act. Over the next few weeks, I worked alongside the other employees, doing everything from stocking shelves to handling customer complaints. I kept a low profile, trying to blend in as much as possible, but also keeping my eyes and ears open. It did not take long for me to notice that one employee, let's call her Karen, seemed to love being in charge of everything, even though she was not even the manager. Karen was basically a middle-aged woman with short hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She was always giving orders to the other employees and seemed to be in charge of the cash register as well. A few days passed by quietly until one evening I received the mail that my manager will again be taking a sick leave. I allowed her, of course, both because I knew how much she has been struggling with the after effects of the pandemic and because I wanted to see what will change now that the manager was gone. The very next day I went in to see that Karen had decided to take charge in my manager's absence. She even went so far as to lie and say that the manager had put her in charge. I could not believe it. This was not only unethical but also potentially dangerous. Karen had no training or experience in managing an entire branch. I knew I had to do something, but I also did not want to blow my cover. So then I decided to approach Karen under the guise of asking for advice. "Hey Karen," I said one day as we were stocking shelves. "I noticed that you seem to be in charge around here. How did you get so good at managing things?" Karen looked pleased at the compliment. "Oh honey, it's just a natural talent. I guess," manager's name, "recognized that and put me in charge while she is out. But don't you think it's a little bit risky? I mean, what if something goes wrong? Because I gotta know that you haven't taken any actual training." Karen's face turned red with anger. "Look, I don't need your opinion," she said sharply. "She put me in charge and I'm doing a pretty damn good job. Now go back to yours." I was taken aback by Karen's hostile response. It was clear that she had no intention of backing down or admitting that she was in the wrong. Over the next few days, I kept a closer eye on Karen's actions. I noticed that she was often rude to customers and would pocket some of the tips that were meant for other employees. She even took 2 of mine when I was not paying attention. When those employees complained, Karen would threaten to call the police on them. I was planning how to deal with this mess when one day Karen refused to pay me for the work I had done that week. When I confronted her about it, she acted haughty and dismissive, saying that I was lucky to even have a job and that with my mediocre skills and 0 industry experience, I should be working here for free so I can gain some knowledge and learn how to respect the authority. Mind you, my company does not ask free work from anyone, which meant that Karen was planning on pocketing my salary. I argued this point with her and Karen started seething at me. When I continued to stand my ground, she went behind the counter and dialed for the police, saying that I was being violent towards her. The police came and of course they did not find anything that supported her claims, and instead they found that she was refusing my salary and warned her before going away. I could see that this defeat made her mad and she was planning on doing something nasty. Which was when I decided to reveal my true identity to Karen. I talked with the manager and arranged a small buffet for the entire team as a reward for working so well. I also asked the manager to announce that the owner would be coming to the party as well. There is a small restaurant a block away, also owned by me, and I decided to have everything set there. I was hoping to do the grand reveal at the end of the party, but as soon as it began, I saw Karen being rude to the cook who was Japanese and demanding someone else to make meals for her. It all came to a head when she snatched the dish that the youngest employee, freshly turned 16, had ordered and threw it away because it was made by a Japanese man. "Hey Karen, you cannot do that!" I tried to be calm, but seeing the teenagers so close to tears was making me livid. "And who are you to tell me that?" "Well, I'm the owner of this company, Karen." "Sure, and I own Samsung." "Wanna talk to your manager?" I held up my phone and showed her that I was on video call with the manager, who told the team that I was in fact the main boss of this company. I saw most employees smiling ear to ear as Karen's face slowly lost color. She opened and closed her mouth like a fish but said nothing. "I've been working undercover here for the past few weeks," I explained, "and I've seen firsthand how you've been taking advantage of your position, stealing from your coworkers and lying about your authority. That ends today." Karen tried to defend herself, but I would not have it. I had already made up my mind. "I'm sorry, Karen," I said firmly. "You're fired. No need to come in from tomorrow." I turned away her and went to console the teenager. I foolishly thought that Karen would leave after being humiliated like this, but of course people like her are not used to being told what to do. I saw the teenager's eyes widen and he pulled me away, but I still felt it. Hot boiling water right on the exposed skin of my ankle. It got chaotic from there on, Karen using whatever she found, plates, chopsticks, boiling water for hot pot, and started throwing it around at me, saying how she would ruin me and my company for treating her like this. The security guards had just entered the scene when we heard a long bang. I turned to see Karen on the floor holding her head while the cook was beside her with a wok in his hand. I asked the guards to restrain Karen as I called the police. Since we have CCTV cameras inside, everything Karen did was captured and I was able to both sue her for damage, harm and theft and put her behind bars. She has now filed the case in court and is trying to get her own lawyer, but I know that no matter what she does, I have enough evidence to sue her broke. The next week I came in as the owner along with the manager. I took some time to talk to the other employees and hear their concerns. I promised them that I would take steps to improve the working conditions and address any issues that they had. They seemed relieved and grateful and I knew that we were on the right track. And here, Ripe Stars, I really hope for the dear employees that they never have to work with a person like Karen ever again. Honestly guys, I think there's not many things worse than a toxic work environment, simply because for many people it's hard to escape it because they obviously need a job and sometimes it can be hard to find a different one. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.